So you may have seen that Luke Grimes, aka Casey Dutton from Yellowstone, is officially attempting a country career. He recently dropped his single No Horse to Ride, and it's actually doing kind of well.
Cowboy with no horse to ride.
He's not the only actor that's currently getting involved in country music. We've also got Chrissy Metz, who you might know from the show This Is Us, who is signed to Universal. And country music actually has a long history of actors or athletes or entertainers from other realms trying to get involved in being country music stars. And there's a number of people like Chase Rice or Charlie Pride that were successful athletes and then became way more successful country music stars. But in today's video, I want to talk about kind of the reverse of that. I want to talk about people that were more successful for their non-country careers than they were for their attempted country music careers, some of which were actually quite big. We got some actors, some athletes, some dancers, some wrestlers in the mix, and we're just going to look at 10 entertainers that went country. First up, Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, but obviously we all know him for his storied football career. He started off playing quarterback at Louisiana Tech University, hilariously behind Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson at first, and he ended up being the first pick in the 1970 NFL draft. He eventually played for the Steelers, led them to 4 Super Bowl titles, and threw the famous Immaculate Reception. And in the midst of his incredible career, he decided to just veer into country music. In 1976, he recorded a whole country album, and it was his cover of I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry that reached number 17 on the chart.
I'm so lonesome.
And that was by far his biggest hit. After receiving 2 Super Bowl titles, he recorded another album in 1980, but the single from that album, Until You, only reached number 70. Still, Terry Bradshaw has remained a very notable member of pop culture. He appears in movies like Failure to Launch. He's even got a reality show called The Bradshaw Bunch about his family right now. And he still sometimes puts out music. In 2020, he dropped his song Quarantine Crazy, and he was the deer in the 2019 season of The Masked Singer. After that, we got Chad Brock. For a few years in the mid-90s, Florida native Chad Brock was a successful wrestler in the WCW, and his name as a wrestler was just his name, Chad Brock. And he'd go up against wrestlers like Mike Enos in his purple underwear and cowboy hat and have these big throwdown matches until an injury forced him to retire. After his wrestling career ended, he signed a deal with Warner Music Nashville where he released 3 studio albums, had 7 charting singles, the biggest of which by far was his song Yes! Exclamation point.
And she said yes.
That song hit number 1 in both the US and in Canada, and it's just a 90s country classic. He had other hit songs like Lightning Does the Work, which is just kind of an anthem of tenacity, very appropriate for a wrestler. But after a while, he did kind of fall off. He did sign a deal later with Broken Bow Records. They put out a bunch of singles, but it never coalesced into an album, and he kind of went into the music adjacent space. He hosted a radio show with Cletus T. Judd, which, I mean, man, that takes me back. I love Bake Me a Country Ham.
How could you bake me a country ham?
And these days, he keeps a pretty low profile. He has an active Twitter, but he just seems sort of like a regular dad on Twitter. Then we got Lucy Hale. Lucy Hale is an extremely recognizable actress. I feel like she's got that kind of like wide-eyed actress look that people like Anya Taylor-Joy or Emma Stone have, but she's also got a lot of notable roles in stuff like A Cinderella Story or Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2, or most notably as the main character on the soapy drama Pretty Little Liars. But she's actually a Memphis, Tennessee native, and she was into country music before her career even took off. She's on record as saying, "I listen to country music and Disney princess songs. Those were like the 2 main kinds of music I listened to." And she lists Shania Twain, Faith Hill, and Britney Spears as musical influences. She scored a pretty high-profile record deal in 2014, and she was writing with everyone from Luke Laird to Ashley Gorley to Hillary Lindsey. I mean, some of the biggest hit makers in country music. And she dropped a debut single called You Sound Good to Me that ended up peaking at number 21 on the Hot Country Songs chart.
It's like aiming from the back of the choir, sweet home of freedom on the...
Now, low-key, the album that song was from is actually pretty damn good and pretty damn country. It's definitely got its poppier side as well, but it didn't end up really connecting. The single didn't take off at radio, the album didn't make a huge splash, and Lucy Hale hasn't released any country music since. But maybe she should just really lean in and write a song called Pretty Little Liar and come back, because I feel like that would so work as a single at radio. Can't you imagine it like a little murder ballad called Pretty Little Liar? This is my plan for her country comeback. After that, we got Kevin Costner. Yes, before Casey Dutton wanted a country career, John Dutton did too. Now, we know Kevin Costner, one of the most iconic actors in Hollywood. Long before Yellowstone, he was in classics like Field of Dreams or Bull Durham or Dances with Wolves. And he's even won an Academy Award for Best Director for Dances with Wolves. But like so many tortured Hollywood actors like Johnny Depp and Jeff Daniels, Kevin Costner really wants to be known for his music. So Costner and his best friend John Koyman actually put together a country rock project called Modern West. He views the band as a way of connecting with his fans. They've been releasing music since 2007. In 2008, they dropped their first album of 4, and they haven't really put one out since 2012. Although Modern West has never been a major force in the music industry, Kevin still fosters his little baby band, and the prominence of Yellowstone has led to a revival of sorts, and now they're putting out a Tales from Yellowstone album and a tour to go with it. There's a similar story for the next person in this video, and that's Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges, one of the most beloved and sort of mysterious actors of our time. You may know him from The Big Lebowski or The Last Picture Show, which is really where he got his break. And one of his most famous roles is directly country music related, where he played a troubled singer in the film Crazy Heart. Perhaps he got bit by the music bug because following the release of Crazy Heart, Bridges wanted to prove himself as a musical artist beyond that, and he ended up working with T-Bone Burnett on a real debut album, beyond the scope of the film. And to be fair, I should say he did actually release a project in 2000 called Be Here Soon, so it wasn't like this was totally his first foray into music. Still, it appears his 2011 album was his last foray into officially releasing music. He signed a deal with EMI and Blue Note for that record, but it didn't really blow up. If you go to his Spotify profile to this day, songs from Crazy Heart all rank high above the ones from his own album, but he was giving it the good college try.
Now I'm done doing nothing. I'm weary of...
And if he's anything like his character in The Big Lebowski, he's pretty chill and not that bothered about the fact that he did not become the next Chris Stapleton. Then let's talk about Mike Reid. After a prolific career in college football as a lineman, Mike Reid was the #1 draft pick in 1970 and went on to play for the Cincinnati Bengals, where he was named the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Still, after a decade in the NFL, he moved to Nashville in 1980 to pursue songwriting. And he did pretty damn well at it. He got his first hit in 1983 with a Ronnie Milsap cut called Inside, which went on to be a #1 hit. And he ended up being an artist in his own right. In 1988, he released a song with Ronnie Milsap called Old Folks that reached #2, and then his own song called Walk on Faith that hit #1 2 years later.
If we walk on faith, trust in.
Still, his biggest contribution to the songwriting world is certainly that he is a co-writer on I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt.
'Cause I can't make you love me if you don't.
Which is one of the most famous songs of all time and has been covered by, literally everybody. And I can only imagine the wonderful royalty checks that he is still getting in the mail from writing that banger. So even though I sort of said that this video was about people that were more successful in their non-country careers, I might be mistaken. Depending on your age, you know Steve Martin from any myriad of entertainment. You know, if you're young, maybe you're like, oh, that's just the dad in Cheaper by the Dozen. If you're a little older, maybe you remember him from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, or The Three Amigos, or The Jerk, or Father of the Bride. And if you're a little baby or a Selena Gomez stan, maybe you know him from that Hulu show. Or maybe you even know him from his stand-up or his time on SNL. The guy is a fixture in pop culture, but something that he has pursued diligently throughout his entire time of being a relevant comedian is a love of bluegrass music. Steve Martin has actually played the banjo since he was a teenager. He even brought it into his comedy routine in the 70s, but it wasn't until around 2001 that he began to pursue music a little bit more seriously. In that time, he played the banjo on a re-recording of Earl Scruggs' legendary hit, Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And that re-recording actually won him a Grammy for Best Country Instrumental Performance in 2002. When he made his own album, which actually featured Dolly Parton, he won another Grammy for it in 2010. And somewhere along the line, he started working and touring with Steep Canyon Rangers, a bluegrass band that he still tours with to this day. Now, I will say, from having done this channel for a while, the bluegrass world is quite choosy. They really need to respect you as a musician in order to embrace you. And Steve Martin has always been rather well received and pretty damn well embraced, way more than some of the other actors that you'd see on this list where people have a bit of suspicion about their intentions. And so while Steve Martin may not be selling out stadiums for his music, he he definitely has the respect of the people in the know. Then let's talk about Julianne Hough. Julianne Hough rose to fame in the mid-2000s as one of the best dancers on the show Dancing with the Stars. She won season 4 with her partner Apollo Anton Ono, and she was able to spin off her career into all sorts of relevant adjacent mediums. Her first stab at this went pretty well, and it was her attempt to be a country singer. In 2008, Julianne Hough released the track That Song in My Head, and it did fairly well. It peaked at number 18 on the Airplay chart, and the album that it launched actually debuted at number 1 on the Country Albums chart, and number 3 overall on the Billboard 200. Which is sort of crazy in hindsight, because that was the era where, like, literally no other women ever became stars if you weren't Carrie and Miranda and Taylor. Like, there was a solid decade where it was kind of hard to launch anybody, and Julianne Hough, this random gal from Utah that was on Dancing with the Stars, did it with ease. She even won the ACM Award for New Artist in 2009, and then for whatever reason just stopped making country music. She went into acting and starred in theatrical adaptations of stuff like Footloose, as well as Rock of Ages, as well as something that I have always had respect for, Grease Live. She played Sandy. I think she did a great job. She even kind of reminds me of Olivia Newton-John in just being like a classic, well-rounded entertainer until she made that like weird-ass chiropractic video, and you know, we won't speak of that era of Julianne Hough. And these days, she's still acting, she's still in the entertainment world, and she's back on Dancing with the Stars, now as a judge. Then we got Alexander Ludwig, or Ludwig. I honestly don't know. But for the purposes of this video, I'm saying Ludwig, because we're in America. Alexander was a teen actor that found success in movies like The Seeker or Race to Witch Mountain, or most notably as Kato in the Hunger Games series. And he's ended up still being successful in shows like Vikings. But like a lot of people in this video, he actually grew up playing music and has decided to pursue country music in more recent years. And I gotta say, I've always thought he would do this because he's actually in the music video for the band Perry's Gentle on My Mind, which I always thought was so random. Like, why is he in this random Glenn Campbell remake by the band Perry unless he has some interest in being in country music? And I've always thought that. And I felt validated in 2021 when he signed a deal with Broken Bow Records. He released a self-titled EP, and he actually put out a full length last year called Highway 99. Also, this is neither here nor there, but can the band Perry that made that Gentle on My Mind please come back to us? Please, please, please. Now, Alexander's very early on into his country career, so I can't really say it hasn't worked, but the original single, Let Me Be Your Whiskey, only really found minor chart success in his native country of Canada.
Let me be your whiskey, and for a while, kill the pain.
Where it did reach number 38, but we'll see kind of what is to come in his country career now. He's done on the show Vikings and now is able to laser focus in on a music career. And then for the last entry on this list, instead of looking backwards, let's look at something kind of happening right now. And that's from Mr. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was drafted to the NBA in 2011. He's had an extremely successful basketball career. He's currently a forward for the Heat. But lately, he's been dipping his toe into the country music waters. Now, Jimmy's been a noted country fan for a while. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll always see him posting country music on his Insta story. He actually was in the 2017 music video for Luke Bryan's Light It Up. There's this viral video of him blasting Luke Combs while out on a boat. But lately, he's been taking co-writing sessions with some of the biggest songwriters in Nashville at the moment, including Jesse Alexander, Ben Hayslip, Graylin James, and there is word that he might be pursuing, at the very least, a country songwriting career, if not a whole artist arc of his own. And there's even one actual Jimmy Butler co-write out there in the wild currently. It's by Graylin James. It's called Old Truck, Young Love.
Steady as a river through a little small town.
So I guess the question now is, will Jimmy Butler get a CMA award or a ring first? We'll have to wait and see. But that's just my list of some of the biggest entertainers that have attempted to go country. There's so many more people I could have said. I could talk about Dennis Quaid or Billy Bob Thornton. Maybe even people like Kevin Bacon or Laura Bell Bundy or, you know, so many. Maybe if this video is a smash hit, I'll do it again. But let me know some of your picks in the comments down below. And I'll be back with way more country content very soon.